What would happen if a simple act of kindness changed the fate of two lives forever? Lida, a candy vendor, never imagined that by helping a hungry girl, she would be planting the seed of a transformation that would bloom 15 years later. Now the girl, named Yasmin, returns with a purpose: to repay the gesture that saved her. However, what unfolds in this reunion is more than just a simple repayment of a debt. It is a journey of self-discovery and redemption that will touch the hearts of all. Lida had always been a simple woman, with a warm smile that attracted children to her candy stand in the bustling square of the city center. The days were tough, and the scorching sun often brought her more difficulties than joys. Nevertheless, she never allowed adversity to discourage her. Life had taught her to always look on the bright side, and her small candy business was a way to bring joy to the people around her, even if just for a moment. Each candy sold was a gesture of love, a way to share a little happiness in a world that often seemed dark. One afternoon, while selling her treats, Lida noticed a small, dirty girl with hungry, shining eyes. Yasmin was only 7 years old, and her stomach rumbled loudly, echoing in the silence of the square. With a tight heart, Lida did not hesitate. She approached the girl, offered her a candy, and in an impulse, gave her some money, saying, "Take care of yourself, girl. One day, you will remember this and will be able to help someone too." Yasmin smiled shyly, but Lida saw gratitude in her eyes. This simple gesture, though small, was a turning point in the girl's life. Years passed, and while Lida continued to struggle to maintain her business, Yasmin grew into a determined young woman. Lida's act of kindness not only fed her body but also nurtured her dreams. Yasmin had always dreamed of being an artist, and over the years, she dedicated herself to painting, using her life experiences as inspiration. In every brushstroke, there was a piece of the story that shaped her, and the memory of Lida always accompanied her, like a light in moments of darkness. One morning, after 15 years, Yasmin decided it was time to return. She not only wanted to repay what she had received, but also to show Lida how much her gesture had impacted her life. With a racing heart, she made her way to the square where it all began. Upon arriving, she found the candy stand, now a bit more worn with time, but still full of colors and smells that awakened memories. Lida, with her calloused hands, was still there, selling candies and sharing smiles. The reunion was filled with emotion. Yasmin introduced herself to Lida, who immediately recognized the girl she had once helped. Tears streamed down both their faces as they shared stories about their lives. Yasmin spoke of her achievements, her struggles, and above all, how Lida's gesture had encouraged her never to give up on her dreams. Lida, in turn, felt that all the hardships she had faced were worth it, as they had contributed to the realization of a dream. What began as a simple act of generosity transformed into an unbreakable bond between two souls. Yasmin not only returned the money but also brought a painting that depicted the moment Lida helped her. It was a vibrant work, full of emotion and life, capturing the essence of love and hope. Lida was amazed to see how such a small act had generated such a big and beautiful impact. The story of Lida and Yasmin is not just about repayment but about the strength of the bonds formed through kindness and empathy. In a world often marked by selfishness and indifference, the connection between these two women is a powerful reminder that every act of kindness, no matter how small it may seem, has the potential to change lives in unimaginable ways. And so, amidst laughter and tears, Lida and Yasmin began a new chapter in their lives, united by the strength of a dream and the beauty of the friendship that blossomed from a simple gesture of love. After the reunion, Lida and Yasmin became inseparable. The painting Yasmin brought was not just a work of art, it was a mirror of both their souls. As the days passed, Yasmin began to visit the candy stand every day, not only to help Lida sell her products, but also to reconnect with that part of her story that had shaped her. Their conversations were long and full of laughter, but they also brought to light some insecurities that Yasmin still carried. Lida, ever optimistic, noticed that Yasmin was still struggling with shadows of the past. "You are an amazing artist, Yasmin. What's holding you back?" Lida asked while arranging the stand. Yasmin hesitated, looking down. "Sometimes, I feel like I'm not good enough. That what I've done so far is nothing compared to what I really want to be." The insecurity in Yasmin's voice made Lida's heart ache. She knew that this kind of doubt could be devastating. Days turned into weeks, and Yasmin began to face a new challenge: the pressure to showcase her paintings in a local gallery. While she dreamed of this, her mind was filled with questions and insecurities. What if no one likes it? What if I fail? The voices of doubt echoed in her head, becoming a weight that felt increasingly difficult to bear. Lida, realizing the young woman's internal struggle, decided she needed to take action. "Yasmin, I want to help you. Let's prepare for this exhibition together. If you fail, we will fail together. If you succeed, I will be by your side to celebrate," Lida said, her voice filled with encouragement. This proposal brought a sparkle to Yasmin's eyes, but it also added more pressure. What unfolded next was a whirlwind of emotions. The following weeks were intense. Lida became a mentor to Yasmin, helping her organize her works, train her presentation, and even prepare for criticism. However, as the day of the exhibition approached, Yasmin began to feel suffocated by the expectations. She started to distance herself from Lida, fearing that her friend might be disappointed in her. Yasmin confessed one morning while working on a new painting that if she wasn't good enough, it would hurt Lida. Lida felt the weight of Yasmin's words in her own heart. She reassured Yasmin that she didn't have to carry that burden alone, and that she would be there regardless of the outcome. Lida reminded her that art is an extension of who she is, and what mattered was her self-expression, not others' opinions. Despite Lida's supportive words, Yasmin couldn't silence the voices in her mind. The fear of failure consumed her, affecting not only her art but also her relationship with Lida. Their conversations became shorter, and on certain days, Yasmin found herself alone, immersed in her thoughts, too afraid to share her anxieties. Lida, in turn, began to feel the pain of distance. She wondered if she had said something wrong, or if she was somehow not helping Yasmin the way she should. Deep down, Lida knew that Yasmin's journey was personal and that she needed to confront her own demons. Yet, this uncertainty left her distressed. Lida pondered what more she could do to help while selling her sweets, feeling powerless. The big day of the exhibition finally arrived, and Yasmin was nervous. The room was filled with people, and the anticipation was palpable. Lida was in the front row, smiling and waving to encourage her. However, when Yasmin stepped up to speak, the words wouldn't come. Fear paralyzed her. She looked out at the crowd, and all the doubtful voices she had faced returned with full force. The silence in the room seemed deafening. In that critical moment, Lida realized she needed to intervene. With a gentle gesture, she stood up and walked toward Yasmin, holding the young woman's hand. Lida reminded Yasmin that she wasn't alone, that she should remember who she was and everything she had overcome to get there. They were in this together, and this was just the beginning. This intervention breathed new life into Yasmin. Looking into Lida's eyes, she felt the strength of the friendship that had formed over the years. With a deep breath, she began to speak. The words came, one by one, and soon her presentation transformed into a true outpouring, where Yasmine shared her journey, her struggles, and the impact Lida had on her life. The audience was captivated. Yasmine's insecurities began to fade, and she started to rediscover herself. Lida, by her side, felt a wave of pride and love. This was the true essence of art, the ability to touch people's hearts. In that moment, Yasmine realized that true victory was not in others' approval but in the courage to be authentic and share her story. The exhibition was a success, but more importantly, it marked Yasmine's rebirth as an artist and as a person. Lida, in turn, learned that true friendship is a safe space where one can be vulnerable and find support. Together, they showed each other that the journey of overcoming is not made alone, but with love, patience, and understanding. Thus, even in the face of uncertainties, they were ready to confront whatever came next, side by side. As the day of the exhibition approached, Yasmine felt the pressure mounting. The nights became long and sleepless, her heart racing with uncertainty. Each brushstroke on her canvases came with a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions that left her increasingly restless. She found herself trapped in a cycle of self-criticism, where each piece felt incomplete, each color faded. The idea of exposing her paintings to the world became a heavy burden, a weight she didn't know how to bear. Lida, on the other hand, tried to maintain optimism. Their friendship was blossoming, but the distance Yasmine had created by pulling away worried her. Lida wondered why Yasmine wasn't talking to her while setting up the sweet stall. She noticed that Yasmine started arriving later and often got lost in daydreams, ignoring the questions Lida tried to ask. The joyful atmosphere of the stall, once vibrant with laughter, was now saturated with an unsettling silence. One day, seeing Yasmine sitting on a bench with her eyes fixed on the horizon, Lida decided it was time to act. She approached Yasmine cautiously and asked why she wouldn't share her thoughts. Yasmine turned slowly, and Lida could see the struggle in her eyes. Yasmine expressed her fears about whether anyone would like her work and what would happen if she failed, especially since Lida had believed in her. The desperation in Yasmine's voice was palpable, and Lida felt her friend's insecurity like it was her own. Lida assured Yasmine that if she failed, they would fail together, trying to convey confidence. But Yasmine's expression didn't change. She was so immersed in her own demons that she couldn't hear the words of encouragement. Fear had become a monster consuming her, and she felt increasingly alone, even in her friend's presence. As the days passed and the exhibition date rapidly approached, Yasmine began to notice that some people around her, like her former art classmates, started to stand out and succeed. This only heightened her feelings of inadequacy. Why can't I do this? Why am I not like them? She thought, as she watched a friend's post in a gallery receiving compliments. Each like on her post felt like a knife plunged into Yasmine's heart, making her question every choice she had made in her artistic journey. Yasmine decided she needed some time alone. She didn't want Lida to see her in that state, but the solitude only worsened her insecurities. Instead of bringing clarity, her mind became a maze where every path seemed to lead to a new doubt. The fear of failing at the exhibition transformed into paralyzing panic, making her consider giving up completely. One night, while looking at her paintings, Yasmine remembered a happy moment from her childhood when she painted her first canvas. The joy she felt back then seemed so distant now. What happened to me? She thought, looking at the brushes with discouragement. Art, which was once a form of expression, had become a source of pain. Her mind began to wander about what it meant to be an artist and whether this was really what she wanted. Doubt consumed her, leading her to question her own identity. In that moment of reflection, Yasmin decided she needed a break from the pressure of the exhibition. She sent a message to Lida saying she didn't feel ready and needed space. Lida's response was immediate and filled with concern. "Yasmin, please don't do this. We're almost there. I'm here for you." But Yasmin couldn't respond. Instead, she chose to isolate herself even more. She stepped away from the booth, avoiding the sweets she used to love selling, and locked herself in her studio. The pressure and expectation began to feel like a weight, and the colors on her canvases seemed to fade. She looked at her works but saw nothing but flaws. When the day of the exhibition arrived, Lida was excited but also worried. Not knowing that Yasmin had isolated herself, she arrived at the gallery determined to support her friend. The room was filled with people, but Yasmin was not there. Her absence made Lida's heart ache. She searched everywhere but couldn't find her. Panic began to take over. With a heavy heart, Lida decided she needed to talk to someone. She found a mutual friend who was also an artist and explained the situation. She was so excited, "But now I don't know where she is. I need to find her before it's too late," Lida said, her voice nearly in despair. The friend suggested they check Yasmin's studio, and Lida didn't hesitate. Upon arriving, she found the door ajar, and the silence inside was deafening. The lights were off, and the canvases were covered with sheets. Lida's heart raced as she imagined what could have happened. "Yasmin!" she shouted, her voice echoing in the emptiness. Eventually, she found Yasmin sitting on the floor, surrounded by paints and brushes, tears in her eyes. "I can't do this, Lida. I'm not good enough," Yasmin said, sobbing. Lida knelt beside her, wrapping her in a tight embrace. "You're amazing, and I'm here, no matter what happens. We'll face this together." Looking into Lida's eyes, Yasmin realized she was not alone. The love and support of her friend were unconditional. She understood that true failure wasn't about not pleasing others, but about distancing herself from who she truly was. With a deep sigh, Yasmin decided she still had a chance to show herself to the world. The exhibition was not just about approval, but about allowing herself to be vulnerable and authentic. With that, they both stood up together, deciding to go to the gallery. What would come next would be a challenge, but Yasmin knew she had someone by her side, and that was all she needed to face the unknown. Yasmin felt exhausted, as if all her dreams had been swallowed by a whirlwind of doubts. The studio, which had once been a refuge, now felt like a prison. The canvases covered with sheets were like ghosts of her aspirations, reminders of a time when art was a source of joy and not terror. Looking at those unfinished works, her heart tightened. Each one seemed like an echo of her insecurities, reflecting a fear that consumed her. As Lida hugged her, Yasmin felt a mix of relief and shame. She had pushed everyone away, but her friend's presence was a reminder that she was not alone. "I shouldn't have distanced myself like this," she thought, as tears continued to stream down her face. The weight of expectation, the pressure to stand out, seemed to have turned into an insurmountable mountain. Yasmin remembered her childhood, the freedom she felt when painting. That feeling of lightness seemed like a distant dream now. "Let's go to the gallery," Lida said, her voice firm but filled with concern. Yasmin hesitated, a whirlwind of emotions overtaking her. What if I can't do it? What if no one cares? Fear begged her to give up, but Lida held her hand, firm and warm. "If you don't try, you'll never know. You're more than your insecurities, Yasmin. You are the artist you've always dreamed of being." The walk to the gallery was silent, but each step Yasmin took alongside Lida felt like a small triumph. With each corner they turned, her heart raced faster, a mix of anxiety and hope. They arrived at the gallery, and Lida, noticing her friend's hesitation, gently pulled her inside. The space was bright, filled with people admiring the artworks. The atmosphere was vibrant, but for Yasmin, everything felt distant, as if she were seeing it through foggy glass. When people began to look at her works, Yasmin felt a chill in her stomach. She remembered all the criticism she had given herself and every comparison she had made with other artists. As she observed the expressions of the people, something within her began to change. Some were smiling, others were animatedly discussing the colors and shapes. Yasmin realized that, despite her insecurities, there was something there that touched people. It was her truth, her emotions overflowing with each brushstroke. Lida stayed close by, watching as her friend began to open her eyes to what truly mattered. "You see, they are connecting with you," she whispered, her enthusiasm contagious. Yasmin started to feel a wave of warmth coursing through her body. What had once been a burden now felt like an opportunity. An opportunity to share who she was, not just as an artist, but as a person. As people continued to admire her works, Yasmin felt her confidence beginning to blossom within her. She remembered all the times she had compared herself to others, every time fear had paralyzed her. The exhibition was not about being perfect or achieving immediate success. It was about the courage to show herself, to be vulnerable. She realized that true success was not in the applause and ovations, but in the ability to express herself and connect with others. With each compliment she received, each smile, Yasmin was freeing herself from the chains that bound her. The weight she carried seemed to start dissipating, and a new determination began to grow within her. "I am good enough," she thought, feeling lighter. It was a new beginning, not just for her artistic career, but for her life. In that moment, Yasmin understood that failure was not the opposite of success, but a part of it. She realized that each mistake, each insecurity, contributed to her journey. And more importantly, she realized that she was not alone on this journey. Lida, always by her side, was a constant amid the chaos. Their friendship solidified in that instant, a bond that grew stronger as Yasmin opened up to the world. At the end of the night, as the gallery lights dimmed and people began to disperse, Yasmin felt a wave of gratitude. She had faced her fears and emerged victorious, not for the approval of others, but for allowing herself to be who she truly was. "I am ready for what comes next," she thought, looking at Lida with a smile on her face. And for the first time in a long time, Yasmin felt that the future was full of possibilities. Yasmin felt at peace, but a new wave of doubts began to emerge within her. The sense of freedom she had experienced in the gallery was quickly overshadowed by persistent thoughts. What if I can't do this again? What if it was just luck? With every step she took toward the exit, insecurity crept back in, like a shadow that never completely left her. Lida noticed the change in her friend's expression. "Yasmin, are you okay?" she asked, concern evident in her voice. Yasmin hesitated, struggling against the words that felt trapped in her throat. "I don't know, Lida. I feel like all of this might have been a fluke. What if I can't replicate it? What if there are no more applauses next time?" Lida stopped and held Yasmin's shoulders, looking into her eyes. "You can't let that take you down. Art isn't about applause. It's about your voice. And you found it today. Don't let fear stop you from continuing to explore that." Lida's words penetrated Yasmin's mind, but the internal struggle continued. She knew Lida was right, but the pressure to stay relevant, to produce something even more impactful, felt overwhelming. The thought of failing again terrified her. Yasmin began to question her identity. Who am I as an artist if I can't repeat that success? What happens if I can't create something that resonates with people again? As they walked, Yasmin saw other people who had been at the gallery, animatedly discussing the works they had seen. They seemed so satisfied, so full of life. This reminded her of a conversation she had with her mother years ago when she started painting. "Art should be a reflection of your soul, not a mirror of others' expectations," her mother always said. This memory brought a small smile to Yasmin's face, but it quickly faded in the avalanche of doubts. "You remembered your mother, didn't you?" Lida asked, noticing Yasmin's expression. She always knew how amazing you are. Don't let your insecurities make you forget that. Yasmin looked down, fighting back tears. I just want to be good enough. I want people to see what I see when I look at my canvases. You are good enough, Lida insisted. And if you fail, it's okay. What matters is that you keep going. Life isn't a straight line, Yasmin. It's full of ups and downs. We learn from every fall. Those words echoed in Yasmin's mind. The idea of failing began to seem less frightening, although it was still far from easy to accept. As they walked, Yasmin started to wonder about the meaning of her work and what she truly wanted to convey. Maybe I've put too much pressure on myself, she thought. Maybe what's important isn't grandeur, but authenticity. The conversation with Lida helped to clear her mind a bit, but the internal battle was still unresolved. In the days that followed, Yasmin found herself revisiting her works, trying to understand what truly motivated her. Each brushstroke seemed laden with meaning, but also with doubt. What if I can't express that again? Over time, Yasmin began to explore new techniques, allowing herself to make mistakes. She created some pieces that didn't align with what people expected. Some of the works were well received, while others were not. But instead of feeling discouraged, she began to notice something important. Each piece reflected a part of her, a piece of her journey. Lida continued to support Yasmin unconditionally. They started meeting more frequently, and Yasmin began to share her fears and insecurities. Lida was always there, offering words of encouragement and reminding her of how talented she was. Success is not the absence of failures. It is the courage to keep trying, Lida would say, reiterating the idea that each failure was an opportunity to learn. The changes Yasmin was going through also affected Lida. She started to reflect on her own life and aspirations. Watching Yasmin break free from the shackles of insecurity, Lida realized that she too needed to face her own fears. If Yasmin can, I can too, she thought, deciding it was time to pursue her own passion for photography, something she had always wanted but never had the courage to try. Their friendship strengthened as they both began to support each other in the pursuit of their passions. They became a pillar for one another, sharing victories and defeats. In moments of doubt, they remembered what they had learned together. Art, like life, was not about perfection, but about the journey and the experiences that came with it. One night, while working on a new piece, Yasmin paused and reflected on everything she had experienced. The insecurities were still there, but now they felt like passing clouds, not permanent storms. She realized she had found a new perspective. Success was not just about recognition, but about the emotional connection her art could create. She smiled as she thought about everything she had learned and how her friendship with Lida had become a crucial factor in her transformation. I am ready for what comes next, Yasmin whispered to herself, feeling stronger than ever. The doubts still existed, but they would not define her now. She was determined to keep creating, to keep expressing herself, even if it meant facing her fears head-on. The future was uncertain, but at least now she knew she was not alone. Yasmin walked around the studio, the smell of fresh paint filling the air. That morning, she decided she would not let doubts take over. Lida had talked to her about the beauty of making mistakes and learning, and Yasmin wanted to experience that. With soft music playing in the background, she looked at the blank canvas in front of her. Everything seemed like a challenge. The insecurity was still there, but Yasmin took a deep breath and remembered Lida's words. Art is a reflection of your soul. She picked up the brush and began to work. The first stroke was hesitant, but as time passed, she started to feel more comfortable. The colors began to blend, forming shapes that seemed to dance on the canvas. The next day, Yasmin decided to meet Lida at a cafe. The conversation flowed naturally, and Yasmin shared how she was feeling. I feel like I'm learning to accept my flaws, she said, a shy smile on her lips. It's strange, but sometimes I feel like failing is part of the process. Lida smiled, her eyes shining with understanding. Exactly. You can't expect everything to be perfect. Every mistake is a chance to learn something new. Look at me, always trying to capture the perfect light in photography, but sometimes the best image comes when I least expect it. Yasmin reflected on this. She began to see mistakes not as signs of weakness, but as milestones in her growth journey. What if I started to see my paintings as experiences, not as final products? She asked, feeling a wave of freedom. That's right. Each piece is a part of you, and even if you don't love it, it's an important step. You can always go back and revisit your ideas, Lida replied, excited. In the days that followed, Yasmin began to experiment more. She allowed herself to create works that were not perfect, that did not meet expectations. Instead of worrying about others' reactions, she immersed herself in the process. And to her surprise, she began to feel more connected to her art. The brushstrokes became freer, more expressive. One afternoon, while working on a new painting, Yasmin had an idea. She decided to create a series of works that reflected her emotions and insecurities. Instead of hiding her flaws, she would highlight them. These are the parts that make me unique, she thought, her heart racing with the new perspective. When she finished the series, Yasmin felt a mix of anxiety and excitement. Lida was by her side, admiring the works. Yasmin, this is amazing. You captured the essence of who you are. It's vulnerable and beautiful at the same time, Lida praised, her eyes shining with enthusiasm. Yasmin smiled, but the insecurity still lingered. What if people don't understand? What if they don't like it? She asked, concern evident in her voice. What if they do? What if it touches someone's heart? Remember, art is not about pleasing everyone. It's about being true, Lida replied firmly. Yasmin took a deep breath, absorbing her friend's wisdom. She began to realize that true success was not about pleasing everyone, but about being true to herself. This new perception freed her, and she decided she was ready to show her works. On the day of the exhibition, Yasmin's heart raced in her chest. She watched people observing her paintings, each one reflecting a piece of her soul. Some expressions were of curiosity, others of understanding. And to her surprise, some people approached her, sharing how her works had touched them. This painting made me feel less alone, one woman said, emotional. It's like you're expressing everything I feel. Yasmin was left speechless, but a smile formed on her face. The connection she had been seeking was there, in the simplicity of empathy. Those words made her realize that her art had power. After the exhibition, Yasmin and Lida met again. Yasmin asked, with a sparkle in her eyes, if Lida had seen how people reacted. They connected with what I created. Lida replied, embracing Yasmin, that she had allowed herself to be herself, and that was the most important thing. Yasmin learned that success isn't just about achievements, but about the journey and the connections we make along the way. Yasmin smiled, feeling stronger and more confident. Doubts still existed, but now they were no longer a burden. They were a reminder that growth was a continuous process. She was learning to embrace her imperfections and to value each step she took. Art, like life, was a reflection of her journey, full of ups and downs, and that was what made everything so beautiful. With Lida's support, Yasmin was determined to continue exploring her creativity. Each new painting would be an opportunity to express herself, to grow, and to connect with the world around her. The road ahead was uncertain, but at least now she knew she was not alone. And that made all the difference. Yasmin watched the movement in the gallery as her heart raced. The space was filled with people, some admiring her works, others murmuring among themselves. The soft light highlighted each brushstroke, and she felt a mix of pride and fear. What was going through people's minds? What did they really think about her creations? Anxiety enveloped her like a heavy cloak. Every fixed gaze in her direction felt like a judgment, every whisper, a critique. She remembered her deepest insecurities, the times her art had not been well received. The echo of laughter and disdainful comments still resonated in her mind. What would happen if, once again, her hopes crumbled? As she watched a group of people approach her favorite painting, her stomach twisted. It was a piece that represented her internal struggle, an explosion of chaotic colors and shapes. She felt vulnerable, as if her soul were exposed to the world. Yasmine wanted to hide, but there she was, at the mercy of others' critical gazes. Her breathing became irregular, and for a moment, everything around her seemed to fade away. It was then that Lida appeared by her side. "Are you okay?" Lida asked, noticing Yasmine's anguished expression. "What if they don't like it? What if they think I'm not good enough?" Yasmine replied, her voice trembling. Lida looked at her with tenderness. "Remember what we talked about. You did this for you, not for others. Every brushstroke is a part of you. If people don't understand, that doesn't diminish its value." Yasmine looked at the canvas again. The painting reflected not only her insecurities but also her courage in facing them. It was a symbol of her journey. She recalled Lida's words about the beauty of failing and learning. This was the moment she needed to choose. Let fear dominate her or be true to herself. With her heart still racing, Yasmine stepped back a little, observing people's reactions. A man, with tears in his eyes, pointed to the painting while speaking to a woman beside him. "It's as if she is showing what I feel, the struggle I face every day," he said. His voice choked. Those words hit her like a lightning bolt. Yasmine realized that her art was touching others in a way she never imagined possible. The insecurities that accompanied her seemed small in the face of that genuine connection. Art didn't need to be perfect, it needed to be true. As the night went on, the gallery filled with voices and laughter. Yasmine began to feel lighter. The tension that enveloped her slowly dissipated, and she began to see the beauty in her vulnerability. When people approached to praise her, each word felt like a layer being lifted from her insecurity. She was learning to accept that art was a reflection of her journey, with its flaws and triumphs. However, in the back of her mind, a shadow still lingered. The fear of a resounding failure had not completely disappeared. And when a woman approached with a serious expression, Yasmine felt her heart race again. "Can I be honest?" the woman asked, her voice deep. "I didn't understand this painting. What were you thinking?" Yasmine opened her mouth to respond, but the words wouldn't come out. Fear took over, and insecurity returned with full force. What was the woman really saying? What if most people agreed with her? What would that say about the value of her art? She looked at Lida, who was further away, talking to a group of people. Yasmine took a deep breath. The woman was watching her, waiting for a response. Silence settled in, and the pressure mounted. It was time to decide. Let doubt consume her or assert herself. "I was thinking about the internal struggle we all face," Yasmine finally replied, her voice firmer than she expected. "I think it reflects the uncertainty and beauty we find in our flaws." The woman considered her answer, and slowly, a smile formed on her face. "I understand. Thank you for sharing that. It's courageous of you." The tension in Yasmine's chest began to dissipate again. It was a small victory, but a victory nonetheless. She realized that her insecurities would not define her anymore. Art, with all its complexities, was a space of freedom. And by allowing herself to be vulnerable, Yasmine had connected with others in ways she never imagined. The night continued, and Yasmine found herself surrounded by conversations and laughter. The insecurity was still there, but now it felt more like a companion than an adversary. She smiled at Lida, who watched her with pride and love. That night, Yasmine not only showcased her paintings but also revealed herself. She had learned to confront her fears, accept her flaws, and value her journey. More importantly, she discovered that human connection, empathy, and authenticity were the true riches she sought. Although the future was uncertain, Yasmine felt stronger and more confident. With each step taken in that gallery, she was freeing herself, embracing the beauty of being imperfect and allowing herself to be exactly who she was. After all, art was, above all, a reflection of her soul, and her soul, with all its layers, was worthy of being seen. Yasmine now looked at the gallery with a different perspective. The tension that once dominated her transformed into a blend of lightness and curiosity. The conversations around her became a vibrant backdrop, and she allowed herself to listen to the stories people shared about their own struggles and triumphs. The woman who had questioned the painting walked away with a smile, and Yasmine realized that, at that moment, there was more empathy than judgment. As the night progressed, Yasmine found herself surrounded by people approaching to share their interpretations. A young artist, whose hands were stained with paint, spoke about how the painting reminded him of his own battles. He said, "You truly captured the uncertainty we all face. That's something we can't ignore," and Yasmine smiled, feeling the connection forming between them. This interaction made her reflect on her journey. As she looked at her painting, Yasmine realized that each color, each stroke, told a story. She had overcome her limitations, and that made her stronger. The insecurity that once paralyzed her was now just a part of who she was, not the entirety. Art is a reflection of ourselves, isn't it? She thought, feeling a new kind of confidence blossoming within her. Lida approached, her radiant smile lighting up her face. "Did you see how people connected with your work? This is just the beginning, Yasmine. You must continue to create and express yourself." Lida's words resonated within her, and Yasmine realized that true success was not just about winning awards or recognition, but about touching people's hearts. The conversation flowed, and Yasmine found herself laughing and sharing stories with the gallery visitors. She now understood that her art didn't have to be perfect. What truly mattered was the honesty behind it, the vulnerability she had revealed. The flaws that once felt like a burden were now part of what made her authentic. "If I don't fail, how will I learn?" she thought, a new understanding pulsing in her mind. As the night drew to a close, Yasmine began to realize how much those interactions had changed not only her perception of herself but also how she viewed art and life. Human connection was richer than any recognition she could receive. That experience in the gallery had become a milestone in her life. She was ready to start anew, not just as an artist but as a person who allowed herself to feel and express her emotions. The visitors began to disperse, and Yasmine felt a wave of gratitude. The insecurity was still present, but she had learned not to let it control her life. There was a new wisdom in her mind. She didn't need the constant validation of others to feel valid. Yasmine realized that for a long time, she had sought external approval, but what really mattered was internal acceptance. Lida pulled her into a tight embrace. "I'm so proud of you. You expressed yourself and allowed yourself to be seen." Yasmine returned the hug, feeling the love and support that had always surrounded her. "Thank you for being here. You helped me see that I am more than my insecurities," Yasmine replied, her voice choked with emotion. In the following days, Yasmine continued to reflect on the night. She began working on new pieces, this time with a renewed spirit. The pressure to please others dissipated, and the freedom to create without constraints motivated her. Each new painting was a celebration of her journey, a way to honor her experiences. The interactions in the gallery also encouraged her to connect more with other artists. She started participating in discussion groups and workshops, where she could share her experiences and hear others' stories. The conversations that once intimidated her now became a source of inspiration. The friendships that emerged from those encounters were unexpected but deeply rewarding. Yasmine's life began to bloom in ways she had never imagined. She started taking part in collective exhibitions, where her work was not only displayed but also praised for its authenticity. Insecurity still appeared from time to time, but now she faced it with a new perspective. Yasmine realized that each failure was a learning opportunity, a chance to grow. Over time, She became a voice within the artistic community, not just for the quality of her work but for the sincerity with which she shared her journey. People sought her out not only to see her art but to hear her story and be inspired by her courage. Yasmine had become an example of overcoming adversity, and that filled her with joy. And so, Yasmine not only found her place in the gallery, but also within herself. She had learned to celebrate her imperfections and embrace her authenticity. Art, once a source of fear, was now a space of freedom and expression. Life continued to bring challenges, but Yasmine was ready to face them, armed with the wisdom and resilience she had cultivated on her journey. Yasmine looked out the studio window, observing the soft light of the sunset. The warmth of the sun seemed to reflect not only in the environment but also within her. There was a time when she felt lost, battling the shadows of her insecurities. However, as she looked back, she realized how the journey she had taken had transformed her. The experiences in the gallery, the conversations with visitors, and Lida's unconditional support had led her to a place of self-discovery she never imagined possible. The paintings that now covered the walls of the studio were testimonies of her evolution. Each one told a story, not just of struggle, but of overcoming, vulnerability, and acceptance. Yasmine remembered the young artist she had met in the gallery and how his words inspired her to see her art as a reflection of her experiences. She had learned that true beauty lay in the honesty with which she expressed herself and how that resonated in the lives of others. As time passed, Yasmine became a constant presence in the artistic community. Her works were exhibited in various galleries, and each new exhibition brought with it an audience that connected deeply with her message. She realized she was not only telling her story but also helping others feel seen and heard. People came to her, sharing how her works had touched them, filling her with indescribable joy. Her friendship with Lida strengthened, and together they began organizing workshops for emerging artists. Yasmine dedicated herself to creating a safe space where people could explore their creativity without fear of judgment. This not only helped others find themselves but also helped her. Each interaction enriched her life, bringing new perspectives and experiences. Yasmine reflected on what success truly meant. In her mind, the concept of wealth had changed radically. She no longer sought awards or superficial recognition. What fulfilled her was the ability to inspire and touch people's hearts. Her days were filled with gratitude, and she lived according to the lessons she had learned. That true wealth lay in human connections, authenticity, and the courage to be vulnerable. Over time, Yasmine became a mentor to many. Her stories of failures and new beginnings inspired those starting their own journeys. She spoke openly about the difficulties she faced and how each obstacle turned into a learning opportunity. Yasmine understood that personal growth was not a destination but a continuous path. She always had something new to learn, and each day brought challenges that helped her evolve. The friendships she had formed along the way also had a profound impact on her life. The conversations with other artists, the shared laughter, and moments of vulnerability created bonds that became unbreakable. Yasmine realized that in a world that often seemed disconnected, these relationships were a safe harbor. They reminded her that everyone was in this journey of life together, and that empathy and understanding were essential to happiness. As she looked at her paintings, Yasmine felt a wave of peace. Each stroke was a part of her story, and she was now in harmony with her emotions. The pain and insecurity that once dominated her had transformed into strength and resilience. She had learned to accept her imperfections and to love herself for who she was. Art was now not just an expression of her journey but also a means of connecting with the world. Yasmine smiled at the thought of the future. She still had dreams and aspirations, but now, more than ever, she knew that the path was full of possibilities. She felt ready to face new challenges, armed with the wisdom she had acquired along the way. Life was full of uncertainties, but she had learned to embrace them as part of her journey. With each new work, with each new connection, Yasmine felt more alive and more aligned with her true self. And so, Yasmine continued to create, to express, and to inspire. Her journey was not just about art, but about life itself. She had found her place in the world and, more importantly, found peace within herself. Yasmim's story was not just one of overcoming, but a celebration of life and human connection. She knew that regardless of the challenges still to come, she had the strength and courage to face them, always with an open heart and a creative soul. Yasmim watched, with a smile on her lips, the vibrant colors of her paintings that now adorned the walls of the studio. Each one was a chapter of her life, a narrative that reflected not only her struggles and achievements, but also the beauty that emerged from vulnerability. The memories of the lost young artist, who once had difficulty expressing herself, seemed so distant. Today, she was a symbol of resilience and transformation. Her friendship with Lida had brought her invaluable support. They had spent hours talking about their lives, sharing dreams and fears. In one of those conversations, Lida had said that Yasmim should never underestimate the power of her story and that her art had the power to change lives. Those words echoed in Yasmim's mind, reminding her that her journey was much more than a quest for personal success. It was about touching the hearts of others. One afternoon, after a workshop, Yasmim sat with a group of young artists. One of them, a shy boy named Lucas, approached her with eyes shining with hope. He said that Yasmim's paintings made him feel like he could be himself. He used to be afraid of what others thought, but she had shown him that art was a form of freedom. Lucas's words touched her heart deeply. That was exactly what she wanted to do: inspire and provide a safe space for others to express themselves. Reflecting on her achievements, Yasmim realized that true success was not measured by awards or recognition. It was the connection she established with the people around her. It was the ability to make someone feel understood, seen, and valued. In a society where many feel invisible, she had become a light, a source of inspiration for those struggling with their own insecurities. Over time, Yasmim's life began to intertwine with a series of unexpected events. During an exhibition at a local gallery, she met a collector who was interested in her story and her art. He offered to represent her, taking her work to an even larger audience. Yasmim hesitated at first, remembering that success could bring new pressures, but the courage she had cultivated made her accept. She was ready for the challenge. One day, while painting a new piece, Yasmim felt a strong and comforting presence around her. It was as if her emotions were manifesting in a tangible energy. In that moment, she understood that she was not alone. The experiences she had lived, the people she had met, and even the challenges she faced were all interconnected by a greater force. It felt as if the universe was conspiring for her to move forward. She felt warmth in her heart, as if an inner voice was saying, "You are enough. Your journey is important." With each new painting, Yasmim felt more connected to this power. It was as if her art was becoming a vehicle for transformation, not only for herself, but also for everyone who contemplated it. She decided that she would not only continue creating, but also use her platform to help others express themselves. Her workshops became a space for empowerment, where artists of all ages could explore their emotions and connect with one another. On an autumn evening, Yasmim organized a special exhibition, bringing together everyone who had participated in her workshops. The atmosphere was filled with laughter, conversations, and a palpable sense of community. Looking at the crowded room, she remembered her own journey and how much she had changed. Each face reflected the struggle and beauty of human creativity. It was a celebration of what it truly means to be free. Yasmim took the stage and, with her voice filled with emotion, shared her reflections. Each of us carries a story. Some are filled with pain, others with joy, but all are valid. Art is a reflection of who we are and can be the bridge that connects us to one another. Never underestimate the power of your voice. Hearing the applause and shouts of encouragement, she felt that, in some way, all her insecurities had dissipated. The true divine justice was there, in that moment, in the form of human connections and the strength each person found to express themselves. With tears in her eyes, Yasmim ended her speech with a call to action. If you have a story, tell it. If you have a voice, use it. Together, we can create a world where everyone feels valued and seen. And so, she invited everyone to share their own stories, to unite, and to become part of this collective journey. Yasmine knew that her story was still being written and that there would always be new challenges and lessons ahead. But armed with the wisdom she had gained, she felt ready for anything. True success, she realized, was living authentically, embracing both victories and defeats, always with an open heart and a mind willing to learn. And you, what did you think of Yasmine's journey? Do you know someone like Lida? Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and see you in the next story.